You did
Hey,
last time.
how's
Hi.
everybody doing? Christa and I are just sitting here talking about the fact that last week I watched back the live, and I don't normally watch these, and I was just like, "What a dork I am!" I'm
You
so
are not a
sorry.
dork.
It was
It's
hilarious.
fun. No, it's conversation. That's what it's supposed to be
I
about.
know. I really get that excited though. I can't help it. Like it's so fun.
Well, it
Everything
was
we
a
do.
good conversation last week.
Yeah, for sure it was. And this week, Christa, it's just you and I, kind of back to the original start here. And I think we're going to talk about archery. And so as the room's filling up, it'll be a good exercise for us to kind of go over because your shoulder is healing.
Mm-hmm.
You are not limited in your activities. That is pretty impressive, right? So for those of you who are new to following us, Christa earlier this year, like just separated her arm from her body. And
it was just 2 pieces. I mean, really, it's no big deal. Just 2 pieces.
Yeah. And then she also tore a little tendon or something, Christa.
Little tear in the rotator cuff on top of it.
Yeah. And so she had just started shooting archery. Our plan was that we were going to go enter a tournament this year. But now we're just going to move that goal to next year, and Christa can shoot an archery tournament. So we're going to talk a little bit about archery because archery is a great sport to do with everybody in your fan. So is anybody out there watching us? How you guys
I do
doing?
see some watchers. So I think it's kind of funny because you're right. We talked about we were going to do that, and I had just started, and the just started was like 2 weeks before.
Right.
Like I was a fresh, brand new archer. And here we are rolling into next week, where next week is RMEF. And at the RMEF Mountain Fest, we have the Total Archery Challenge, which I am not participating in. I am watching when I can see it, right? So this is a great week to talk about archery.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about archery. And that Total Archery Challenge is really cool as well. There's so many activities in archery, whether it's at your local range and going to a league where it's kind of like a bowling league or a shooting league. You know, you just go in and you shoot a tournament every week. So much fun to do. And then the Total Archery Challenge is outside 3D targets. I mean, it's going to be an exciting time to be at in Park City, Utah next week. So let's talk about some questions you have about archery. So let's just kind of have a conversation and see where it goes.
Absolutely. So yeah. I want to stop here for a minute, ask a question that you just mentioned about indoor leagues. And you've got some history with an indoor league.
Yeah.
Why don't you share, how does somebody find something like that and what can they expect?
Yeah, so you find it by just going to your local archery ranges or calling around and asking, do you have a league? When does it start? And just go sign up. There's a link, and I'll put it on here, but the Archery Trade Association and Archery 360 has a link to clubs that have activities going on it too. But you can just show up, and what you're going to find is people that are willing to help you, and you get a handicap. So you shoot a score and you get a handicap. So even if you're a brand new archer, you could actually win based on like a golf handicap. So it's a lot of fun, and I've made lifelong friends shooting archery. So my archery partner and I, John Overton, who has an archery center now in Kansas City, we shot together, and then Ann Geist, one of my dear friends, she and I shot together. That's kind of where y'all know about the name of Shoot Like a Girl. So her husband Kurt used to call us the girlies. Oh gosh, the girlies are shooting again, and we did win a lot, but we had so much fun shooting that tournament. And we did dots, we did 3D, so there's all kinds of different dots. And I'm going to tell you, so one of our staff shooters just started shooting archery as well, and she's doing so good. Dub Fincher, for all of you who know Dub, and she's doing so well. And I'm just screaming at her on Facebook like, shoot 3 dots instead of just shooting 1. If you start shooting Robin Hoods every other shot, it's time to shoot a target that has 3 different dots. Go ahead.
What is a Robin Hood?
A Robin Hood, it's when you shoot one arrow into the other arrow. So where you shoot it, you're shooting so well that you've shot one arrow and then you shoot another arrow and it literally splits your arrow down the middle, and then they're nested together.
I was getting ready to ask you, can you reuse the arrow? But it sounds like that's a no-go.
No.
Okay.
And anytime, like honestly, if you're shooting carbon arrows, anytime that you really whack that arrow hard, you need to look at it because they are very safe arrows. But if they get damaged, you don't want to shoot them. You want to toss them out of your quiver and get a new one.
What are some other do's and don'ts about archery? I mean, I've heard no dry fire, right?
Right. So you never want to dry fire a bow. So what dry firing of a bow is when you draw the bow back and you release the string without any arrow. And so the arrow travels, the trajectory of the arrow is from the energy that comes from the bow. So when you pull the bow back and it puts tension on those strings, let me see, like this, right? When that energy all goes through that string and goes through that arrow, and that's what propels the arrow forward. If there's no arrow, there's no place for that energy to go, and it will go into the bow, and that is a very bad thing. So the bow can actually break apart. You could get hurt. There's really only a few ways to get hurt in archery, though, y'all. It's if you dry fire a bow, and that happens, or you don't knock the arrow all the time. So that's why whenever you're shooting a bow, you always want to make sure you hear a positive click when you knock that arrow. So you put that arrow in and you'll hear that not click, because too loose of a knock and it doesn't go on there, it's not going to absorb that energy like it should. And then the other way that you can get hurt is if you shoot with bad form or in too long of a bow, where your arm is so stretched out that the string will hit it as it reverberates. So normally the string will go, let me see, normally the string will go past your arm fine, but it reverberates back as the tension is released, and it'll catch that skin right there if you've got your arm kind of cocked into it. It's hard to do on the screen. So you want to make sure that your bow fits, and your arm should have just a natural bend, not an extended bend, but just a natural little break in your arm when you shoot archery, and then you won't have it. And you follow those two rules. And of course, don't go down range while people are shooting. It's not a good thing either. Oh, I'll tell you another way, though, that you can get hurt is when you pull arrows. So after you've shot your target and you go down to pull arrows, you always want to be careful, especially if you're shooting a league and there's arrows on top and arrows on the bottom, that you don't go to pull your arrows on the bottom and whack yourself in the eye with an arrow that's on the top sticking out. It's not that I've ever done that, but I would say it's not.
I can see myself doing that. Let's just go with that, right? I can see myself doing that. Well, let's spend a few minutes while we're here, since we are focused on archery, and maybe talk through some of the names of the piece of the bow, right?
Yeah.
So for me, this is my first bow.
Right? Beautiful.
And there's a few things. I know what the string is.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with that part.
Yep. Do you have it upside down? Hold it right side up.
See, that tells you. I did have it upside down. Look at that. I'm learning. I'm in the learning mode. Okay. Here's my bow.
For the purpose of demonstrating the parts, it would have been fine.
Okay, that's good.
So what you start with, that circular thing up at the very top, if you point to that, that's a cam, right? And so some bows have double cams and some have single cams. And a single cam one would up at the top actually have a wheel. So see how when you pull that bow back, and you don't pull it back now, but when you pull that back, that cam is going to rotate around, and that helps draw that string all the way back. There's some that are single cam where that top one isn't intricate like that. It's a simple wheel, like a round wheel.
Like a round wheel. So this is not round. This is very oval. And hi, Peggy. I see you. This is the Hoyt Eclipse.
Yeah, that's the Hoyt Eclipse. And it's a great bow. So then you, of course, have your strings, but you also have cables. So the ones that are coming from the cam, the things that look like strings that are coming from the cam.
Yeah.
No, not that one, on the inside. Inside. Yep, that's called a cable. Okay. And so that is part of the mechanics of the bow. So you have strings and cables there.
Oh, that's good. I just assumed that was like one. Oh, it's not.
Yeah, you see how it sits there, okay. Right?
So, and what is this part across the top?
That's called your limb. And so the limbs are actually what draws the weight of the bow. And so if you had 50-pound limbs, your bow's max would be 50 pounds. If you have 40-pound limbs, your bow's max would be 40 pounds. And then of course there's so many diverse limbs now that you can actually go from 17 pounds to 70 pounds. So it's kind of cool that they have that technology now, but those limbs are really cool. And then the thing in the middle, that's the rubber part, that's a dampener. So everything you do in archery is trying to keep the vibration out of the arrow, because the vibration in the arrow will make it go like this down the lane, right? So you want it to be solid. And so those dampeners, that's technology that really does help that bow. Now, hey, Christa, there's a good thing to show right there. So see the screw at the end of your limb away from the cam, right? See that screw, and you can see that screw kind of through there. And when you hold it back, you can see that there's a gap like that. Yep. So that's right, because we have Christa's bow backed out so that she can learn to shoot at an easier poundage than she'll actually end up shooting. And most bows will go down 10 pounds. You always want to look at what the factory says that they will do. But you want to make sure that you don't unscrew that. So that screw is what's holding the limb to the riser. So the riser is the piece that's kind of, what's the riser? That's a riser. Okay. And so that screw goes into that riser, and that's actually what's holding that limb in place there. And so you want to back those screws out to give you less poundage. And you want to turn the top one and the bottom one the same amount of turns, so you keep it in sync. But you never want to go so many turns that you're seeing a good portion of that screw, because then you know that you've only got a little bit of screw holding that in there. So you want to make sure that you're following your manufacturers, and each manufacturer, most of them are 10 pounds, but you really do want to look and make sure.
So the nice part is you can actually adjust your poundage on your bow.
Yeah, absolutely. So for you, and it's really easy, you just do it with a set of Allen wrenches. So that screw is an Allen wrench screw. And literally when you've shot about 100 or 200 arrows out of there, we'll turn that and we'll just add a ½ pound. So I saw somebody said that they want to hunt with a hunt maybe with it. Oh, they do a crossbow. That's awesome. But if you're going to hunt with a compound bow, a lot of times their states have weights that you have to pull back. Some states don't have any, but most states have a legal weight that you have to draw back to shoot the animal. And so if you're going to do that and you don't think you can pull that back, there's a really good practice that I do every year before I'm going archery hunting. And I turn my bow back to as low as I can get it safely without having too much of that screw exposed. And I shoot 200 arrows, and I shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. And then I just turn it a half a turn, and then I shoot again. And as you slowly, incrementally increase that weight, don't worry about sighting in though, because I'll tell you, every time you add weight to your bow, your sight is going to change. So if you, because the arrow travels, the speed of the arrow is what affects the trajectory of the arrow. And so if you increase your weight poundage, you're also increasing the speed of your arrow. And so when you do that, it's going to change. You're going to have to readjust your sights. So unless you have a single pin that you can easily print out a tape, like you have right now on your site, I think you have a 5-pin sight. Is that 5 or 4? Anyway, you've got 5. Yeah, so you've got a 5-pin sight. So you would set those really for like 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever you're doing, and set those pins up. And the top one is going to be your lower distance, but you wouldn't want to crank your weight every week and then spend all your time sighting in your pin. So you have to just shoot blank fails. So don't worry about where your arrow is going to hit. Just stand, 10 feet away from your target and shoot, and then crank that weight up again. Because what it's going to do, just concentrate on your form with each shot, making sure that you're making a good shot in your mind and in your form. But it's also going to build that strength and that muscle memory up for you as well.
Okay. Oh, you mentioned the sight. We also have this right here.
Yep. So that's a D-loop. Oh, your Peep. Yep. Your Peep. Yep. Sorry to see. That's a Peep sight. And so what that is basically on a gun, it would be your front sight. So you have a front sight with the Peep and a rear sight, which is your sight on your bow. And what you want to do is line those two circles up. So circle and circle is perfectly aligned so that when you look at it, it's all together. And then your pin is your distance.
Okay. All right. So this was the D loop you mentioned.
Yeah, that's a D loop. So that is for shooting a release. If you shot fingers, you wouldn't want to do that. But I will tell you on short draw bows, which bows that are shorter axle to axle, it's really hard to shoot fingers. People do it. But when you pull it back, sometimes you can pinch the knock off of the bow, and that's not a good thing. So if you do shoot fingers, you got to make sure that you practice so that you don't pinch the knockoff. But that D loop will help with the release. And a release aid is a really great tool to help you be able to shoot proficiently.
All right, let's walk down the line here. So let me turn it this way.
Yep, that's your rest.
Yes, we have the rest.
Yeah, so your rest is actually pulled up. So you could take that on the bottom and you could flick it and it will just flick it and it'll drop that rest. See how that drops? So then go ahead and set it up. So when you draw the bow back, it starts like this. And when you draw the bow back, the rest goes up like that. And the arrow will be rested inside that, that little U-shaped rest. And then when the bow shoots, what happens on this rest is that drops down. It's a drop away rest. And then the arrow is free to fly to your target to the center X.
All right. So we have...
That's a wrist strap and a stabilizer. So you have two things going on there. One is a stabilizer. So because when you have a great shot for archery, you really want to make your shot and have nothing happen. But what happens to the bow is the bow will fall forward. And so that arm guard is so that that bow can fall forward without you actually grabbing it. Because what happens when you grab the bow is that it will make your trajectory of your arrow go right or left a little bit. And so you want to make sure that your grip is very solid, straight grip. And then as that bow falls, it just falls like that. So you're not grabbing it with your hand at all.
So that's
a stabilizer. And that's to help that bow stay forward.
What is this in the back?
That is, oh gosh, you're going to ask me a term I can't remember. It's a it's another dampener and it has a term.
Okay.
All right, Peggy Barchi, help me because
Peggy, if you're watching,
I see a question here too. When buying a first bow, what is most important thing to look for? Comfort. So just like cable guard. Thank you, Christina. So just like a firearm, you really want the bow to feel comfortable to you. And it's hard to do because they don't always have bows and draw lengths and weights that fit women at every archery dealer or at Cabela's and Bass Pro even. But you can go in and you can do what I call everything at pre-draw. And we have an article on our website about that we'll put a link to. But you can do everything up to drawing the bow back and see how it feels. So like when you have your bow holding it, you don't want that where her hand is, you don't want any pinch points or you don't want it to feel uncomfortable. You want it to feel balanced in your hand. And so it's funny, some of the bows that I think are the heaviest, other women think are the lightest. And I think that goes to how our bodies are and how that weight is adjusted over our bodies. And so you really, physically, not draw length weight, but the actual physical weight of the bow itself. So you just want to really make sure it's comfortable for you. They're all going to hit the target if you practice.
So the bottom looks a little different. It has this, can you see that? It's like a little rubbery knobs.
So those are dampeners as well.
So those are dampeners. All right, so you've got lots of dampeners going on.
Yeah, like you can even buy accessories and you could bedazzle the heck out of that thing with all these little dampeners. You could tie them in your strings and add all to it. People do all kinds of fun things to customize their bow. You just really want to make it quiet. But most of these bows nowadays coming out of the box, they're going to be about as quiet as you can get them.
Bedazzled bows. That's what Christina says. Well, it's interesting because oops, I didn't mean to hit that. So we're, how do I do that? There we go. We leave that off there. I don't know how to make it go away. Oh, well, Peggy, you got it as up there until I figure out how to take that comment down. Some of our teammates have very long stabilizers.
Like, oh yeah, of course. So you can have
one as the bow.
So that setup is really more geared towards hunting. But if you're competing, sometimes you might have 3 stabilizers on your bow. So it comes off almost looking like a tripod. And it's all things to do to help keep that bow as stable as possible when you're at full draw, and then as balanced as possible as it falls forward after you release the arrow without you grabbing it at all.
All right. That makes sense. I had noticed some of our teammates have been competing a lot this last couple of months, and watching in their photographs and in their recaps of their events, some of those stabilizers look like they're 2 feet long.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And that's Christina says she has a bow for hunting and tournaments. And when I competed heavily, I had 2 bows, one for hunting and one for tournaments, because you really, so depending on what tournaments, like if you're shooting an indoor tournament, you don't need to have your weight all the way maxed out. You know that you're going to shoot 18 meters away and it's going to be the same shot every time. Now, if you move out to 3D where speed counts, the more weight you have, the longer your draw length, the faster your arrow will go. Right. And so you always want to do it.
So we've got another Peggy question. She says, does the trailer have both compound and recurve bows?
Yeah, so we don't have any recurve, and but we do have compound bows, and we've got compound bows from I'm sorry, Bass Pro and Cabela's, and also Hoyt and Matthews that you can see. They're very cool.
Right, and for those that are watching that might be at the RMEF Mountain Fest in Park City or in near Salt Lake City, so we'll be in Farmington, Utah first this weekend. Actually, that's in a day and a half. I mean, it's hard to believe that we are Thursday.
We're flying out tomorrow, folks.
We're flying out in the morning. So if you're in Salt Lake City area, we'll be at the Cabela's in Farmington. We'd love for you to come by and try the bows on the trailer, and of course the firearm side as well. And then we will also be at RMEF the following week, which I believe is Thursday through Sunday, and that's in Park City.
Yeah, and I'm giving a speech on Thursday. So I'm excited to give the speech. I don't know. They gave me an hour time slot. I don't want to hear myself talk for an hour, so I can't imagine other people, but I'm excited. I'm going to talk to people about getting women out hunting and shooting, and how to make that experience good for a new shooter. So even men as well can take part in that. So we're excited to get out there and do all of that, see our friends and family from RMEF. We just love them. You know, they've been part of Shoot Like a Girl since I first started the company. And in all honesty, I tell the story. So RMEF helped us get into Cowboy Christmas when we first launched the trailer, Trailer One. And we were on the show floor of Cowboy Christmas during the National Finals Rodeo. We had our name up in the arena so that Shoot Like a Girl came across the arena ticket. So it was all because of RMEF and some introductions that they made. So we're just so thankful for them and can't wait to be there. Jesse, I don't know if they're live streaming any of those speeches. We maybe will video it and put it on YouTube or something, but I don't know.
We'll find out, right? We'll find out. Well, we appreciate all of you guys hanging in. We're at 23 minutes. I mean, it's hard to believe how just simple glossary terms about archery and the bow specifically can get really involved. So we won't keep much of your time this evening anymore. We hope to see you if you're in that Utah area, whether it's at Cabela's or at RMEF. We do have a winner from last week's live. So last week we had some of our instructor staff on, and we talked about the new Ruger LCP Max, the 380. And so our Shoot Like a Girl swag went. Oh no, Karen said she thought she had a
Ruger hat.
A Ruger hat. That's right. Is Deanna Landon. So I'll send you a message for your mailing address. And I saw Lee on here earlier. Lee, I know that Hoppies is getting your stuff out to you. We had that conversation with them earlier this week. We appreciate everybody and your patience with getting product to you. And Deanna, congratulations on your Ruger hat win.
Yeah.
Karen, do you want to close us out for tonight?
I will. So everybody, I just am going to say, I see the news. I don't watch it very often, but I know that it's getting a little crazy out there with all this COVID stuff. I would just say that we hope everyone stays healthy and enjoys the life that we have and the day that we have today. Because no matter what, tomorrow's never promised, and we've got to enjoy what we have today. And so we ask you all to enjoy the day. And come see us when we're in Utah. Safe travels, Christa. I cannot wait to get out there and get on the plane tomorrow and see everybody. So bye, y'all. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Take care.